Okay, welcome to another TFT Masterclass. Thank you everyone so much for coming. I'm Upsetmax. Today we are going to be talking about the top 5 common mistakes that the average player makes and how to prevent making them. This is another TFT Masterclass by FakeGamer, and if you are watching this in the voice channel, definitely ask any questions if they come to you. And if you're watching this on YouTube, definitely join the Discord and check out these classes live. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. So 5 common mistakes, and that relates to 5 different areas of interest. So today we'll be talking about item slams, streaking, stabilizing, augment selection, and the last one, just talk about shred, sunder, heel cuts, and their significance. So what's the point of today? Basically, we're just going to help you identify what the common mistakes are in your gameplay, how to avoid making them, and optimize your choices. And hopefully this will help you outperform your opponents and help you top 4 in your lobbies. So pretty simple, but yet pretty important. And then at the very end, we'll do a recap of what they are and a Q&A session for those who are in the voice channel. So the first area of interest is the item slams. So we'll talk about early game item slams first. So this is the stage 2 slams. Basically, on average, you're going to have a total of 3 components on your bench early game. So by 2-1, which is the first combat round, most of the time with those 3 components, you're able to make a completed item and then float 1. So always try to make some sort of acceptable item slam on 2-1. So something that is actually just like relevant in the meta, works well on the main carries in the current meta, and also works well on your board. And then you can leave your 1 component. So this is just floating, which means that it's just like it's not defined yet. You can make whatever you want with it. Float that 1 component, and then you'll most likely be playing off of the upcoming carousel in stage 2. So in this case, Heavenly Duelist, one of the strongest openers right now. If you're able to hit Darius 2 and have a reasonable slam. 2 potential slams here. Well, first off, this board is actually not that great because we don't have Duelist, but this is just an example. So then your 2 options, either like Last Whisper and then float your tier, and the tier can become Hodge, or actually it has to be Hodge, and then, or it could be adaptive, but basically either Last Whisper and float tier, or you can make your Hodge, which is Hand of Justice, and then float Bow, and that could be into like Last Whisper, it could be Titans. So a couple different options here. And then if you have no acceptable items and you're just planning on lose streaking, that is totally fine. You could greed your items and then win out stage 3. So regardless of the case, unless you really don't have any acceptable items or acceptable slams, always try to slam something on 2-1 to at least help you save HP. And then who knows, maybe you win the first round without leveling, and then on 2-2 you hit a pretty crazy shop, and then you can start win streaking from there. So always try to make an item unless you really have no good slams at all, and then play off of your open components. So that's the first thing on stage 2 slams. It just helps you save HP, it helps you tempo and not lose rounds really hard. And then we move on to stage 3 slams. So a general rule of thumb, not even just on stage 3 or just in general, is try not to have 3 or more components on bench at a time. The reason why it's 3 or more is because, as mentioned in the previous slide, you can then slam 1 item and then float 1 component and then just play around that open component. So then here in this case, right, we have 3 open components. We have a choice, either make Rabadons, 3 item or carry, and then float the chain. That could become a Gargoyles, it could become a Steadfast, just any generic frontline tank item. Or the other option is like we make a Crown Guard, and then we float Rod, and that Rod can become Spark, since we already have Morello. So then here I would scout around and see like, or just like analyze your own boards, like, oh, is my frontline good enough? Do I need more tank items? Or if you look around and be like, okay, like the opponents are not having that great of a frontline, I just need more damage. And then depending up to you, like in my opinion, I would rather prioritize damage in this case. I have like an okay frontline for stage 3, at least for stage 3-1, it's not bad. So then I would just prioritize damage. I make the Rabadons, and then I 3 item my main carry, and then I will try to find Shred on stage 4-1. So Shred and Sunder and Heel Cut, I'll talk about more of this at the very end of the area of interest, but ideally you want to be starting to invest into Shred, Sunder, and Heel Cut starting stage 3, because that is when you might be running into like full completed tank items on your enemy carry or enemy tanks, or even like 2 tank items, and you're really going to have to try to get through that. Stage 3, it's like it's starting to get there, but definitely by stage 4 you will need to find Shred, Sunder, depending on your composition. So those are your stage 2 and stage 3 slams. Just always try to make something and then float one components to help you kill units. This even though it seems like pretty simple, this will keep you on tempo. It'll actually help your item economy, because then you're not just having a ton of different components on your bench and like there's too many options. Just by making an item, even if it's a suboptimal item on your board, at least as long as it does something, it will still benefit your board and just help out your game in general. So uh, always analyze your options, make your best options, and then play off of your open components from there. So that's the first thing regarding item slams. The second area of interest we're going to go into is streaking. So recently they brought back streaking for two streaking. So that is very helpful, and I love it a lot. So that is something to definitely keep in mind. Our initial stage 2 streaks, so if we look at stage 2 on the first combat round, this is basically our first like main decision after selecting our augment, to decide whether or not we want to be win streaking or lose streaking. So you just have to quickly analyze your opener and then determine whether or not you have a strong opener or a weak opener. And then strong opener, this is dependent on whether you have any 2-star units with synergies. So synergy is super important. You have to have, of course, you have to have units that work with each other. If you just have a random like 2-star units, like 2-star Caitlyn, 2-star Kobuko, 2-star like Kha'Zix, and you put them all on the same board, they'll probably kill like one unit, but you probably won't win the round. So that's the first one. Strong slammable items that are relevant in the meta. So we're not going to be slamming a QS on 2-1. This is just not ideal. It's better to save those components for something else. But if we're slamming something like a Morello or a Last Whisper, then those are definitely strong slammable items. And then the very last one is to check whether, or not even check, just see whether or not you have a reasonable combat augment you can take, or if you'd rather go into the economic route and take like an econ or even tempo augment. So these are some factors to take into consideration when determining whether or not you have a strong opener or not. And if this check marks and you scout around, you're like, okay, it's looking like I have a reasonable chance to win streak here, then level to 4, slam your items and try to win streak. Regardless of whichever choice you choose, always try to either 5 win or 5 lose with streaking. You really don't want to break your streak and just stick with it. Even at the expense of your HP, it's okay to 5 lose with the actually, this won't even affect next patch. Next patch, they will adjust the player damage. However, it's just later in the game player damage is increased. So stage 2 player damage is still really low, and you can easily scrape by with 70 HP 5 loss. So in this example here, right, so we take a look and we're like, okay, our items, right, so the only reasonable slam here is Morello. And right now we're angling like a Heavenly Cane comp. In this case, I think I just didn't have any any other good openers for units, and the best augment in this case is Inspiring Epitaph, which is actually not that great on stage 2, but sometimes you're just given 6 bad augments and you have to take the least bad. So we do a quick scout, a quick analysis. No good slammable items, at least not for our composition at the time. No 2-star upgrades. We have a mid to late game combat augment. So Inspiring Epitaph gets a lot better once you're able to get more units on your board. So you have more units to epitaph off of each other. So then here, I don't level, I just make 10. And then if I don't win the round, right, I'm at 9 gold, I just sell Kha'Zix because Darius Parent's more important. So this is the checklist, or I guess the mindset you should be going into when going into stage 2-1, whether or not you want to be trying to win streak and whether or not you want to just be prioritizing interest and lose streaking over the leveling up and win streaking. The very last thing I want to mention is, especially if you have an encounter on Carousel, lose streaking is much more favored in this specific scenario. This encounter can either be like 2 item components, it could be a full completed item, it could be like a 4 cost, it could be like an artifact anvil radiant item. So there's definitely much more merit to lose streaking if there is an encounter on stage 2 carousel, and the only time you low roll is if it's Irelia and all players can move along the carousel. However, that is a low chance compared to all of the good potential options. So keep this in mind when you are going into the early stages of your game. Let's say that our streak is broken. This happens like more often, not actually, I wouldn't say more often than not, but it's definitely feasible to happen. You have a good strong board, and then you just, someone finds a random like 2-star 3 cost, and then it's like, okay, well, no matter how I position, they will stat check me and I'll lose. So let's say you're trying to win streak and then your win streak is broken. Then you want to prioritize making interest instead, especially if you cannot continue winning. So let's say you win your first 3 rounds and it's like, okay, good, great. And then after carousel, most most players who are not win streaking, or even just like or most players who are not lose streaking, or even are just like win loss, will be level 5 and playing a reasonable board. If you look around and you're like, okay, I cannot beat them, just focus on making interest instead. Make your 20 gold. That will help you make your 30 gold after. So definitely keep that in mind once after carousel, especially if your win streak is broken. So in this case, right, I won the first 3 rounds and then I lost. This was like a 2-star 3 cost, or however it happened. Then I actually sold my board. I put in fortune because I had the opportunity, which is great, and I just prioritized my interest instead. Vice versa, let's say this is the opposite scenario where we 3 lost, right? So 2-1, 2-2, and 2-3 we lost, and then we won on 2-5 because carousel counts as 2-4. So now it's 2-5 and we're 1 loss, and we have 1 more round on stage 2, which is 2-6. And let's say we won the previous, right? So this is a win, which broke our loss streak. Then you want to scout around, see, okay, if I level and play my strongest board, can this net me my second win? Because as I said earlier, 2 streak is back, which is pretty important. And you get that 1 gold from winning as round. So definitely scout around and see like, okay, if I level and play the strongest board, I can beat, let's say, 2 out of the 3 of my matchups, then it's worth it. Go for it. And then hopefully you get that 66% chance, able to get that 2 streak. And that's not even bad. 3 loss, and then you got item carousel priority into 2 win. And then you start playing on from stage 3, depending on what you have. So this is how you want to be navigating your streak. If you're winning, just keep trying to win. If you lose after win streaking, then just prioritize your interest. And then if you're losing and you accidentally win, or just someone like outsacks you, or you face a fortune open player, then see like, okay, who are the remaining matchups in my pool? If I level to 5 in this case, then can I beat them? Yes or no? And then go from there. So that is what the streaking part is, just trying to maintain your streak, and then what to do if your streak is broken. Okay, so next we are going to be talking about our third areas of interest is going to be stabilizing. So what is stabilizing? Sometimes you hear this term is like, oh, like I've stabilized, I don't have to roll anymore, or like, oh my god, like I have to keep going, my board isn't stable yet. Basically, stabilizing is achieving a board state, and this can be done through achieving a strong board state, and this can be done through a variety of different options. So either having like upgraded units, or upgraded higher quality of units, an augment that spikes your board to a certain level, or influx of items. Regardless of what it is, stabilizing is getting to a specific board state where you're able to at least win most of your rounds for the stage, or take good losses. So you can't just be getting 6-0'd every round, especially starting stage 3. You'll be taking a lot of damage, which is our first point, is you're going to be wanting to stabilize on 3-1 or 3-2 if you 5 loss. 5 loss is a perfectly good strategy on stage 2. We cannot always be dropped good openers, and we want to be maintaining and actually getting our econ up, because we're in a 4 cost meta on stage 4. So definitely 5 loss is fine. In this case, we 5 loss stage 2, and then you want to be stabilized on either 3-1 or 3-2 to start winning some rounds, saving HP, and tempoing from there. So this is an example. You see I'm 5 loss. In this specific case, I had epic, so I'm able to at least tempo to level 6, and I have a couple rolls, which is great in this case. Able to get a little bit of a strong board, 2-star Nico, 2-star Zyra, play around this AP flex for stage 3, and then stage 4 either look whether or not I can go fast 9, or if I have to play around Silas Sage. So this is the first part of stabilizing, is basically it's okay to lose. It's okay to lose streak, get that money up, and then when it comes to a new stage where player damage is increased, you have to strengthen your board to at least either win most of stage 3. So like I could win 3 out of the 5 of these combat rounds, and then the 2 losses. If I'm just taking like 2 unit losses, then that is perfectly fine. So you don't have to send it to 0. You don't have to send it to 0 gold by any means, but definitely roll a bit, or at least do something to your board to strengthen its quality. So that's the first part of stabilizing, is going to be on stage 3-1 or 3-2. And then the second part is going to be on stage 4-1 and 4-2. This is your generic level 8 roll down. Although it seems pretty self-explanatory, one thing to note is going below 10 gold or not. So we will most likely always be stabilizing on level 8 on either 4-1 or 4-2, just depending on how rich you are and if we are contested. The condition of whether or not to go below 10 gold or not is based off of our board state of stabilizing again. So if you have not stabilized, so you rolled maybe you went too early and now it's like, okay, or you just got unlucky, one or the other, and your board is just not good. You don't have any good holders for your items yet. You're gonna have to go below 10 gold and at least try to salvage something. That's the first option. Or two, if you have multiple important pairs. And important pairs is basically any units that have items on them, especially 3 items, because it's much more efficient for your board and effective for the board strength if you 2-star a unit with 3 items versus if you spend gold to 2-star a unit that has no items on them, or even just like 1 item. So always prioritize your important units, and especially if you have an important pair. So like if I had Kane pair in this case, well, I'd probably still stay 10 gold, but if I had Kane and Lee Sin pair and I was 10 gold, then you know I'm continuing to roll, because if I hit one of them, then that is a huge spike. So that is when you can go under 10 gold. I would stay above 10 gold if you have a reasonable board. So at least like 1-star copies of your main carries. You have the ideal item holders for your main carries. So in this case, right, I have like 2 set of melee bruiser items. So that's great. I have my Lee Sin, I have my Kane. I have Morgana to hold my Morello. And then I've decently upgraded heavily units, and then a 2-star Diana. So I can comfortably sit here at 10 gold. And also I have no pairs, right? Or no important pairs. So I have no Kane pair, I have no Lee Sin pair. There's no point of me going below 10 gold because there's a very low chance that I'm hitting 2 Kanes in one shop or 2 Lee Sins in one shop. So that is how you stabilize on stage 3, and that is how you want to be stabilizing and rolling down on stage 4. You don't always have to send it to 0. It is actually better to stay above 10 gold, and then either if you have a pair on 4-3, then you can roll back down to 10 gold because you're not making 20 there anyway. And if not, or even so, you can roll back down again on 4-5, and you'll have around like 25 goldish to roll, and you'll hopefully hit something from there. So that is stabilizing, and now we're going to go into augment selection, one of my favorites. So on your 2-1, you have your first option to choose your augment, right? The current meta, this will change a little bit starting Wednesday, but at least for the next couple of days, you could use this. So the current meta relies a lot on econing to stage 4 and rolling down for your 4-cost units. We're in a 4-cost meta, which means we need to be level 8 on stage 4 and trying to contest some of these 4-cost units for either our Ashe, either our Kaisa, either our Kane, regardless whether or not we need money, right? So right now in the meta, econ or tempo augments on 2-1 are extremely strong. As you can see here, the best augments like Shopping Spree, Slamming, or technically this is Slamming Plus, this is a Lilia 3-1, so just ignore that for now, but like Raining Gold, Epic, What Doesn't Kill You, Patient Study, these are all 2-1 augments that are really good because they either give you econ, which will put you ahead of tempo in terms of economy compared to your other players in the game, or they're tempoing either through XP or just like additional gold. So these are all very good augments to take on 2-1. As you can see, the average placement is quite high for these, or just quite good, and these are actually just very good quality augments. So that's the first one. If you are choosing one of these econ augments, I actually think it's better to lose streak. Because you chose the econ augment, this will help you reach your next interest threshold easier. So if you take Raining Gold, right, it gives you 9 gold immediately, and then 1 gold for every turn. That really helps you get to 20 easily, and then from 20 you're able to get to 30 a lot easy, and then 30 makes 40, and then 40 makes 50, and then next thing you know, you're making maximum interest at the end of stage 2 or early stage 3, which is insane. So some of that is better to lose streak, but if you have a tempo augment, then definitely try to win streak. So this is like your epic or your slamming. First off, epic just gives you free rolls, so able to hopefully get some 2-stars to strengthen your board, and you can win streak from there. And then slamming gives you some XP, so you don't have to spend any on leveling, or at least less on leveling, and it gives you a component. Most of the time on stage 2, you're able to make 2 completed items then, because we normally get 3 item components, and then we get +1 from our slamming. So econ augments, it's better to lose streak, try to get that next threshold of interest as soon as possible to make even the next one. And then for tempo augments, try to win streak. It just gives you better tools to go about the win streak way. So this is your 2-1 augment selection, and as you see, it's backed up by the stats currently. Just strong econ/tempo augments to take on 2-1, so definitely look out for these, and then try to go level 8 after on stage 4 and play around your 4-cost carries. The second one I want to talk about is a very easily made mistake when choosing your augments, is basically early versus late game augments. So there are specific augments in this game that have much more value early game, and then much and then there are specific augments that have much more value later in the game. So I'll explain this a little bit about epitaph at the very start, but I'll go into it now. So augments that buff individual units, these are a lot stronger early because you have less units on your board. So let's say you have 3 units on your board and then some augment buffs like one of them. That means 33% of your board is getting a lot stronger, right? So in this case, these are like item-based augments, right? So this is going to be your strong early game augments. These are item-based because most, unless other players take item augments as well, all players in a game will have the same amount of item components. So then being up items against your opponents early is really, really good. So you see here on the 2-1 stats is really close to 4, which is good. Like Accomplice, Not Today, Sleight of Hand, Trash or Treasure, Band of Thieves, Freaky Friday, Roll the Dice. They all give you items, and items are really, really strong early. These are less strong later into the game because after Wolves, after Krugs, almost all players will have like 3 item carry, 3 item frontline tank. So then your abundance of items or your item excess is no longer as valuable as it was compared to early in the game when everyone only has 3 components and able to make 1 completed item and floating 1 component. And maybe you took sleight of hand and you're a full 2 components, which is in the form of Thieves Gloves, ahead of everybody else. So early game augments that buff individual units, so basically item-based augments, are a lot stronger, and these most of the time will help you win streak. The second option is mid to late game augments, specifically late game augments. So now instead of individual units being buffed for early game, we're now going to be talking about team-wide augments that buff the entire team. These are going to be stronger later. And the reason why is as you go throughout the game, you'll be leveling up, adding more units onto your board, which means team-wide augments, as you go throughout the game, you will then have more units to be buffed than if you took these team-wide augments early. So it's basically, let's say we take an example. I'll talk about epitaph again. Here we go. Epitaph, right? Once a unit dies, then it passes on to your nearest ally a max health shield and stacking attack speed. If you take this on 2-1 and you only have 3 or 4 units, then that's only like 3 or 4, well, that's only like 2 or 3 inspiring epitaph procs. However, if you take this on 4-2 and now you're level 8, you have much more units to epitaph off of each other. And then this, I think the clearest example is probably Gifts of the Fallen. Gifts of the Fallen, right? You get gifts from the Fallen. So then as more units fall, you get more gifts. But if there are less units that fall, then you get less gifts. So that is how to interpret whether an augment is good early or late. You want to think about it like, okay, is this going to help me right now? Does this put me ahead of tempo of everybody else in terms of like item economy, in terms of board strength? Or is this augment really good when I have a lot of units that could benefit from it? And then that would really like define whether or not to take it early game or whether to take it late game. So that is the augment selection. The most common mistakes, I see people taking team-wide augments on early game, and there's just not a whole lot of team to benefit from that yet. And then the very last one is just reiterating the significance of having Shred, Sunder, or Heal Cut on your board. Starting stage 3, especially stage 4, you need to have either Shred or Sunder based on your main damage output. So whether or not you're playing an AB board, whether or not you're playing an AD board, and then you'll have Shredder and Sunder based off of that, and anti-heal in the form of either a Morello, a red buff. Either one of these are fine. So if you're playing a physical damage board, let's say we're playing Kaisa, we 100% need a Last Whisper. Even Shroud is okay, but Last Whisper is just better in that composition. Or let's say we're playing the Kane comp, we don't have Last Whisper, and we don't have Even Shroud, then we'll have to play an Aurelia. Vice versa, if we're playing a magic damage board, we need to either have a Shiv or a Spark, and if we really don't have any of these and we have like an extra unit slot, or a flex unit slot, then we can play a Loon for the time being. So starting definitely stage 4, make sure you have either Shred or Sunder, depending on your main damage, and some form of heal cut. This will allow you to get through the enemy tanks and actually start winning some rounds, because if you can't get through the enemy front line, then you're never getting to the back line. So that's it. So I'll just reiterate everything for today. I think pretty simple. We talked about 5 areas of interest today. We'll talk about the importance of item slamming, even though if you don't have the most perfect item, you're doing it to save HP, and just making your item economy a little bit simpler. So you're only playing around 1 component instead of 3. the importance of streaking, trying to maintain your streak, whether it's win streaking or lose streaking, and then what to do if your streak is broken. Stabilizing, it is perfectly okay to 5 loss on stage 2. You just have to turn things around starting stage 3 using that gold that you have, and then trying not to go below 10 gold on stage 4 on your level 8 roll down. Augment selection, the difference between an early game augment and a late game augment and how that affects your board. And then last but not least, I was just reiterating the importance of having shred or sunder on your board along with some form of heal cut or healing reduction. So that has been everything for today's class. Today we just talked about the most common mistakes that players make, not even on this patch, but just in TFT in general. So hopefully you'll keep these in mind when playing your next game. Hopefully that helps you out and you're able to net some sweet LP. So thanks everyone for watching. We're now going to enter the Q&A session for those who are in the Training Grounds Discord channel, and I will see you all next time.